Greetings, my dear travelers, and welcome to another episode of Allure Stories. This bonus series that we're putting on our main feed is all thanks to a subreddit group called Allure Stories. Allure Stories aims to bridge the gap between writers and content creators, helping them get their writing out there for the world to hear. Morbid Forest, along with Dark Knight Tales, Cryptic Cliff, and Back to Ashes, have partnered with the subreddit group for a monthly contest. Each month, the partners go through and read all the stories submitted for the contest. And the prize? Well, getting your story narrated, of course. Here at Morbid Forest, we love any means to give back to the community which has helped uplift us. And we love reading stories from up-and-coming writers. If you're interested in participating in the monthly contest, go ahead and see the link that I'll leave down in the show notes. And without further ado, the Morbid Forest would like to present Sleepless Nights.
I haven't been able to sleep for some time now. It comes and goes in chunks of time, like a stagnant river of still water, weighing me down with an endlessly relentless restlessness that keeps me in a mud pit of worries and impossible intrusive anxieties that, like the coming of the day, will never come to pass. I think I'm on day 3, and I feel like I'm starting to lose my mind. Every time I think I've got at least a fleeting chance of catching some rest, something will inevitably come to mind, plucking me out of that liminal state between wakefulness and my dreams, back into the boggy dread of the dead of night that, by now, I know better than my own mother. I know better than to utter a single word of this to anybody, but perhaps in my writing, I can get this off my chest and, maybe, if I'm not getting my hopes up, I can put my mind to rest and finally lay down for at least one night of decent sleep. I can only wish for such a mercy at this point. I've always had some difficulties when it comes to getting sleep. Like I said, this tends to come and go, but as of late, I haven't been able to for what seems to be a year. I'm plagued by hellish hay fever night sweats and a near nightly sense of dread and doom coming, followed by hours upon hours of harrowing what-ifs, whose faults, and why isn't. Until, like a switch, the dark of the early morning is broken by the first chimes of the dawn choir of finches living in multiple trees that line the avenue my house lives on, if you want to call that living. By the time the day begins to break, when the sky lightens, and the soft sound of early morning commuters sleepily driving by begins to hasten, I can set my mind at ease to a certain degree. The ceaseless worries of the night before go silently as I drift into a light stillness that substitutes a proper night's sleep. But it doesn't come. No drugs, no drink, no medication or meditative efforts seems to be helping lately. I feel like I'm going mad. And there's nothing for it, because eventually the light comes low and scatters the shadow of the houses and trees of my subdivision into a low-lying river of darkness. And she, or it, will be back. Yes, she. Whenever I give in to exhaustion and try to tuck myself into bed, I close my eyes and try to get comfortable. Time goes by, and it becomes apparent that I am not alone. It starts as a flow of ink in my mind's eye as I lie with my eyes closed. It swirls into a multitude of muddy colors in formations I have never seen elsewhere or have been able to describe. As I struggle in vain to open my eyes, the increasing pressure of an outside presence somewhere in the room with me lurks as the atmosphere begins to gain weight around me. I can't open my eyes to see physically. As the unyielding heaviness of the air begins to increase, my ears pop, and a low building hum comes into my mind. It gets louder and louder. The underlying sense of doom in all my surroundings becomes so unbearable that I forget myself. Where I am, what I'm doing, and who I am leaves my mind as the sense of approaching death comes to me. A bizarre sense of burning pain starts to overtake my entire body, from my feet slowly up to my head, and the swirling mass of indescribable forms and hellish void starts to materialize into a face. The face of a grotesque, soulless husk of a girl or woman or something takes up every bit of my vision. I'm having a nightmare, I used to say in my mind. The girl, sallow and revolting, starts to grin an unnaturally wide and jagged smile. Her hollow and empty eye sockets fill with a cruel and evil gaze. An echoing whisper and a warm, putrid breath slithers into my ear.
You do not rest. You do not sleep. You do not dream.
Paralyzed and hopeless, I lay in my bed, unable to escape her gaze, desperately trying to pry my eyes open, only to come to the horrifying revelation that they already are. My eyes only widen to an unnatural breadth as the figure above me stands outstretched with its slender, skeletal body hunched hungrily over me. Her gaunt face twisted and rigid, less than an inch away from mine. The smell in my nostrils was rank, like an overwhelming sweetness mixed with the smell of warm decay and hot, moist breath. She continues to stare at me with her face contorted. My heart is pounding so hard, it feels as though it will explode at any moment. All as the shrill and yet somehow sing-song sound of her whispers echoes over and over in my mind.
You do not rest. You do not sleep. Do not dream. You do not sleep. You do not dream. You will not. You will come. With me.
Like a skipping needle on an ungodly record player, she torments me. All I can do is resist and fight to keep my sense of self, which seems to be slipping away into her decaying and spindly fingers. She continues to smile with a twisted, gleeful sense of malice as I desperately try to regain control of my body. In a last-ditch effort, I make the sign of the cross with my tongue, hoping that will save me. She howls a screeching cackle that sinks into a deep and guttural laughter. I suddenly gained control of my eyes and shut them tightly. All I could hear was the sound of my heart pounding and the blood coursing through my veins. And after what feels like a lifetime, I am able to regain control of my breath and slowly start to calm myself down. As the sound of my heartbeat starts to dissipate, I realize I am alone. As the soft and familiar chirping of the neighborhood birds comes through the window, I breathe a sigh of relief. The soft glow of daybreak tells me the long night has finally come to an end. I wish I could say this is a one-time experience for me. Just an awful case of sleep deprivation or a terrifying reoccurring nightmare. But my reality is far worse. As peaceful as my house is in the daytime, as silent as my mind at daybreak can be, I know that as soon as the night comes. As soon as I lie down again, she will be there waiting. Even during the day, if I try to get some rest, I can still feel her in my periphery, peeking at me from the other room, or lurking around corners, smiling and whispering, all the time, whispering and laughing and gazing at me with hollow and hungry eyes. Help me.
This has been a Morbid Forest production. And on this week's bonus Allure Stories episode, you've heard Sleepless Nights, written by A.Friesen, with narration provided by Kiefer Light as your narrator and Naomi Richards as your ghost girl. Story editing and audio production by Naomi Richards. Music and sound effects provided by Epidemic Sound. And we'll see you next month, travelers, for another episode of the Allure Stories series.